Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the Book Troop live show for the month of January, where we will be discussing this month's buddy read, which is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Do you know, is it Gillian Flynn or is it Gillian Flynn? I
I
feel like
was
I
going to
always
ask you the same thing.
I feel like I always say it wrong, and I don't want anybody to get mad, but
Every
I
time I
think
pronounce it in a video, I'm like, Jillian?
I
I
know
don't
I'm like,
know.
is it a hard G? Is it Gillian or is it Jillian? Like a J sound? I don't know. But
Somebody will know. So,
somebody will know. Yeah, but we read it. We read it together this month. How great. Okay, Kendall said hard G.
okay. So
Gillian,
is
got
that
it.
Gillian?
Cool.
Gillian. Okay. I'll try to like ingrain that in my brain.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much to everybody who's already joining us. I appreciate you for being here. This is my friend Heather from the channel Bookables. I have her channel linked down below if for some reason you're not familiar. But Heather and I have been friends for like so many years now. We were just talking about this right before we went live, but I was like, oh my gosh, like we've been friends at least 5 years now, if not a little bit longer. And it's just like it's about time, that I've had you on the book
I
club, and I'm
know.
so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, honestly.
Yeah. Would you want to do like maybe a quick little introduction about yourself and your channel for anybody who like might not be familiar with you?
Sure. There's probably a lot of people that are not familiar with me. I feel like
Oh,
that's
please.
totally okay. No, I'm
Oh,
Heather. I have
please.
the channel Bookables. I have been on BookTube now for, I don't know, like 11 or 12 years, a long time. Like I was
That's
back
amazing.
like with the OGs, I feel like like
Yeah.
Christine, Jesse, and Kat and all them, which are all amazing. My favorite
Iconic.
genres are romance and thrillers. And yeah, I try to post twice a week. That's all I
Yeah.
can say, I
Killing
guess,
it.
about
Absolutely killing it.
oh, you do. You're amazing at content. You're always putting out new and innovative content. I'm like,
Oh, thank
okay.
you.
I love it. I love your vlogs.
I appreciate it. And yeah, I feel like me and you, we have very like similar taste for the most part when it comes to books. And I feel like we do have a lot of crossover in our taste when it comes to like
Mhm.
thriller and romance stuff. So that's very cool. And yeah, oh my gosh, like that's amazing that you've been on YouTube for so long. Like we were just talking about how like it's so like hard to be a content creator sometimes and try to like come
Yes.
up with the new ideas and stay like on top of things. But I think that's so awesome that you've been around on YouTube for such a long time, like
Well, you're about to celebrate your 10 year as well. So
10
yay for
years.
Gabby.
I know, crazy. It's just so
I
crazy.
know. Don't you feel
Um,
like it's been a decade and you're like,
Yeah, like
where did
I
that
feel
time
the
go?
decade.
Because I don't remember that time going that fast.
Yeah. No, it went by fast. Like it did go by fast. So,
It
um
definitely.
also, yes, like when I literally announced that you were going to be a co-host, my comments were flooded with like, "Oh my god, I love Heather." So I was like, yeah, I was
I
like,
feel so
yes.
I don't know. I just feel so old. I'm like, nobody watches me, but I'm so happy that people still do and find enjoyment. So that is
No,
amazing.
literally, I had so many comments that people being like so excited that you were finally going to be on the book troop. So like, it made my heart so happy.
Yay. Well, I'll have to make an appearance again if you will allow it.
Right? No, absolutely. I'm like, yes, this will be a thing. Hi, Jan. Well, thank you so much for everybody already joining us in the chat. I so appreciate you all for joining us. You'll have to let me know. I would love to know in the chat if you did end up reading along with us this month. Maybe you can put a little black heart in the chat if you did read the book. And then maybe if you did not read the book, or if you DNF'd it or something like that, maybe you can put a little house emoji or something like that in the chat, just so
Oh,
I can
that'd
get a
be good.
visual, right? Like just a little
Yeah.
house,
Yeah, that's
like just a
great.
little dark place. um,
Because that's definitely very accurate for the book.
right. And the beginning of this will be spoiler free, so we will not be jumping into spoilers right away, so you can stick around if you haven't read the book. And then while everybody's doing that, Heather, would you want to kind of pitch like a non-spoilery synopsis to anybody who like hasn't read the book and is just kind of curious about it, if you don't mind?
I will do my best. I don't know how good. Okay, non-spoilery. This means just like basic description, right? Like if you would look
Yeah,
this up on Goodreads.
yeah.
Okay.
Basic,
So
basic description.
okay, I will do my best. If I fail, nobody tell me. um, this is about a character named Libby who is in her 30s now, I believe, and she suffered a really traumatic event when she was in, I think she was 7 or 8. Basically, most of her family was pretty much massacred, and she escaped, and her brother also escaped, but he actually went to jail for it, and he's in jail for it now. Now we flash forward to Libby now, and she is kind of running out of money and needs some money, and somehow she finds about, I think it's like a true crime, like kind of black market network, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, they think that her brother is innocent, and Libby has always thought that her brother was guilty. And so we kind of delve into what exactly transpired that day so many years ago. What is exactly the truth? Is her brother really innocent, or is he guilty that Libby thinks? So
Mm-hmm.
there's my pitch. I don't know if it
That is
was good or
perfect.
not. You'll have to
Yeah.
tell me.
No, that perfectly sums it up. First
Okay,
time.
good.
That was great. Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you so much, by the way, to everybody in the chat who has been putting these black hearts. Like everybody, there's so much participation this month. So I really genuinely appreciate all of the participation.
Yeah. Well, I
And we
think it's
love
a
first
very,
time.
she's a well-loved author, so I can see a lot of people haven't read this already.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Okay, so I think we should jump into ratings before we get into the
Okay.
nitty-gritty because I feel like we have to talk about ratings before we get into all the details, you know? So
I agree.
so why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your rating first, Heather?
Oh, okay. You're gonna
Yeah,
make me do it first. I see how
you'll
it
go
is.
first. And everybody in the chat, you can tell us what did you give this book out of 5 stars if you did read along this month. I'd love to know.
Oh
But yeah, why
gosh.
don't you kick us off?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
I gave it a 3, so I'm just gonna leave now. So see
You're
you
like,
later.
goodbye, camera off.
Yeah, nobody throw stones at me. Like, yeah, like if I could be honest, it would be like a 2.75, but I mean, I'm
Okay.
not that technical, but I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a 3.
Okay.
What
And then
about
like
you?
what is a brief reason that's like non-spoilery for like why it's a 3 for you?
Why is because the one word that describes this book for me and what I felt while reading it was bleak. It was a
Mm.
bleak book. Like it made me depressed reading it. It made me
Yeah.
depressed after. Like it was very dark and very heavy and it
Yeah.
really got to me. And there was
Yeah.
a lot of other scenes in the book that just really got to me. So that is why I gave it a 3. The writing was great, I will say, and the twists and turns didn't see
Yeah.
that coming,
Yeah.
but it was just bleak. So
Yeah.
that's yeah. What about you?
I honestly full-heartedly agree with everything that you just said. I also ended up giving this one around a 3. I think I also like I could be talked down to like a 2.5 or up to a 3.5, depending on, things like I'm not strong on my 3, but it's around a 3 for me.
Right.
I agree with what you said about how like it was just a very bleak and like depressing story. And it was almost to the point where it was like not as enjoyable because I just felt really icky after finishing this and kind of like yeah, like
Yes.
it just kind of like soured my mood and just made me like, ugh, like there's no hope and like it's just sad, like so maybe I should have anticipated that with this literally being called like Dark Places, and like I have heard over the years that this one's pretty dark, which should not have been that surprising, I guess. But yeah, I think bleak is like the perfect way to describe this. It's definitely
Yeah.
bleak. But I do think I'm still giving it 3 stars as opposed to like a little bit lower because, like you said, yeah, the writing is really good. Like I do love this author's writing. And I did think there was some things about the ending that I thought was like shocking. Like I wasn't expecting some of the things that happened at the end of this one. So
Right.
it did take me a little bit off guard and I did like that about it. Otherwise I would have rated this a little bit lower if I wasn't surprised at the end.
Right.
So yeah, it's about a 3 star for me, but I do see that it's quite a mixed bag actually in this chat with the
I know.
ratings.
There's like 3s, there's 2s, there's a lot of 5s.
Yeah, like because I don't know when I like when I announced this book for the book tour because this one is a backlist. This published
Mhm.
originally in 2009, which is a long time ago. I think this might be the
Yeah.
oldest published book tour pick that I've ever had. So like when I first announced this book, there were so many comments of people being like, "Oh my god, it's like one of my all-time favorite thrillers," or like it seemed like a lot of people were like really, really like raving over this book. So I was kind of like, "Oh my gosh, like it's gonna be like a huge success and like huge turnout." But it does seem like the ratings are kind of like all across the board here. Which is interesting. And I do wonder for people that have rated it really high,
Mhm.
is this something that you read a long time ago and you still consider it like a 5 star, or is this something that you've read really recently and you gave it 5 stars?
That's a
I would
great
be
question.
I'd be curious to see that in the chat because I know that some people have like read this a long, long time ago. So I'm just curious to know. And then while they're doing that, I would love to know. I know we talked about this briefly before, but have you read this author's work before? And if so, how did this one compare?
No, I have not read this author's work before. I have watched Gone Girl the movie. I have not read the book. I know.
Wow.
Um, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But no, I haven't read her works before because I knew how dark the subject matters were. So when you asked, I'm like, oh gosh, but
You're like, I don't
what?
know.
I was like, why, Gabby? No, but I'm glad to have read it because I think I just realized that she's not the author for me, but I can
Mhm.
respect and appreciate her work still. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
one of those authors, like, that I appreciate her, but she's just not for me, and that's totally okay. But I'm glad
Yeah.
to have read it, and I can finally say I've read one of her books before, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm like so torn over this author, because like I feel like this
Mhm.
is an author that I really love in a lot of ways. I've read everything that she's come out with so far. If you are unfamiliar with her work, she has 4 books currently out. She has this one, Gone Girl, Sharp Objects, and then she has a novella that's called The Grown Up, which I thought
That's
The Grown
right.
Up was like fantastic. I thought it was so good.
Yeah, I've
I
heard a lot of
think
people love that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like creepy almost. Like it has like a horror feel to it. It's like a horror thriller kind of vibe. I really enjoyed that one. But I think for me, Gone Girl is like my all-time favorite from this author. Like I love Gone Girl. I've read it at least twice. It's one of those books that I think even if you've seen the movie and you've been like spoiled for what happens in it, I still
Mhm.
think that you can enjoy the book because the writing is just so genuinely good and like getting into the head of these characters is just really, really fascinating. So I would always recommend Gone Girl to like anybody
Okay.
that like across the board, like to any thriller readers. I think Gone Girl is kind of like the blueprint, like it's just so classic.
I kind of
Um,
see, you maybe pitched me just to read it because I do want to read it because I really enjoyed the movie and thought it was interesting. And I was like,
yeah,
and I was going to ask you what your favorite book of hers was
yeah.
and what your rankings are in each of them. So Gone Girl would be up top.
Gone
Where
Girl's
would
so
this one
top.
be?
I know. I think Gone Girl, like for me, is
Okay.
like one of my all-time favorite thrillers ever. It's way
Okay.
up top, like way up here. And then I
Gotcha.
think The Grown Up is like definitely next. I like The Grown Up, the
Okay.
like little creepy novella. And then I think at the bottom is this one in Sharp Objects. Like I don't know. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure I gave Sharp Objects around 3 stars as well. But from what I remember about Sharp Objects, I remember it feeling the same way to me, where it's just kind of bleak and kind of like sad.
Mhm.
Whereas I think Gone Girl stands out to me as something kind of different because Gone Girl feels a lot more like thought provoking and like
Mhm.
interesting and kind of like, the characters are messed up, but like in a really interesting way to me. Whereas like this one just made me kind of sad. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I agree with that. Okay. So as far as like publishing, was this one like her what number of books was this?
I know.
Like,
I am
was Gone Girl
pretty
her first one?
sure. No, I think Sharp Objects was actually her debut. And then I
Oh,
believe
okay.
that this one was her second published. So I think Gone Girl is actually one of her more
Oh,
recent ones.
wow. I did not think that. I did not know that. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
I
interesting.
think I think The Grown Up is actually her most recently published because I think that one came out in like I don't know, like later years, but then Gone Girl I think published in like 2011, 2012, like around there.
Mhm. Okay.
So very interesting. And also, I actually have seen the miniseries for
Okay.
Sharp Objects, and you were saying you have too?
I have seen clips from it,
Yeah,
and I
seen
saw
clips
how
from it.
dark it was. And I know this one has a movie too, right? With
It
Charlize
does,
Theron?
yeah. This one
Have you
does have a
seen that?
movie. I haven't seen the Dark
Okay.
Places movie, no.
I just
I don't
know
know
it
if
didn't
I
get good reviews, I don't think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if I want to because I haven't heard the best things about the Dark Places movie, but I did really like the Sharp Objects TV show. I actually preferred it as a TV show as opposed to the book. Like I didn't really care for the book
Okay.
as much. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion though, but yeah, but then the Gone Girl, I actually thought Gone Girl was like one of the best movie adaptations that I've ever seen. Like it
Okay,
was
good to
so
know.
accurate to the book and just like so good and I just really loved it. So,
Don't you find that interesting how two of her adaptations were really well received and good, and then
yeah,
this one was not apparently?
I know.
I guess we'll see
It's
if they'll do something for The Graduate.
Yeah, it's interesting because this one was like I think maybe because Gone Girl had like a much bigger or more well-known cast or like maybe they put more of an effort into like promoting it and it was supposed to be like a bigger scale kind of movie, like I don't know.
That's
But
yeah, that could be it.
yeah, it's so interesting to hear everybody's take on this author because I do think a lot of people have very varying opinions on her, because I know a lot of
Mhm.
people really love Sharp Objects, and then a lot of people actually
Mhm.
do like Dark Places more than Gone Girl, which is very
Interesting.
interesting.
Okay.
Very interesting. I think it just depends on the level of like darkness that you enjoy in your books, maybe, or I don't know.
That's
Like Gone Girl's
true.
just very readable to me, but yeah.
I did
Um,
see one comment that said that, sorry, hopefully I'm not
oh
interrupting,
no, you're good.
that dark places and sharp objects have to do more with trauma. So maybe that's why they're so
Oh,
bleak. And I totally agree with that.
yeah,
And Gone Girl, I think, is more kind of a mystery unraveling in front of your eyes, maybe.
that's so
That could
true.
be. So
Yeah,
that's a great comment. I
that's what
totally
I
agree
mean.
with that.
That's so true, and I think too, like, yeah, like, the tone of Gone Girl is just a bit more lighthearted, I think, than
Hmm.
these 2, so, like, yeah, I think that's a huge good point, so yeah, and then one question I did wanna ask before we jump into,
Hmm.
like, talking about the book is because this book, does kind of have, like, this true crime vibe to it, which is what everybody says about this, like, it kind of reads like true crime, and so I was just
Hmm.
wondering, before getting into the book discussion, like, is true crime something that you enjoy reading, or, like, have you read a lot of true crime, and, like, is that something that you enjoy too?
That's a, you know what? I think of just thriller as kind of an umbrella. I don't know exactly. I can't think of any true crime books now. I'm sure I've read some. Can you
Yeah.
think of any?
I know. Well, one of the ones that I really enjoyed was the one that's called, like, I'll Be Gone in the Dark or something like that, and that one's,
That's a
true
nonfiction, right?
it's a true crime
Oh,
nonfiction.
okay,
Yeah.
then yeah, no, I have not read any of those. I'm not
Okay.
a big true crime girly, I would
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
but I think it's awesome that people are into it. I think it's just I can't listen or read that too much because
Yeah.
it'll get me like this
Yeah.
book. But I think it's interesting though, for sure. What
Yeah.
about you? Do you read a lot of true crime?
I know. I actually don't read a lot of true crime, but I prefer to like listen to true crime in like podcasts or
Mhm.
something like that as opposed to like
Yeah, of
reading
course.
nonfiction books about it. Just because I feel like in a podcast it can come across as a little bit more like lighthearted or easier to digest as opposed to like sometimes the nonfiction books can just be really really heavy and like
That's a very good point.
yeah, and I think I struggle with that, you know. But like if I listen to like
100%,
a
yeah.
morbid podcast, like morbid is just so fun and it's like pretty lighthearted even though they're talking about serious things, but it's like I don't know.
I
So
get I listen to Bailey's I watch Bailey Sarian
yeah,
sometimes when
yeah.
she does her murder mystery makeup,
She's
and she
great,
makes it feel a little bit more lighthearted, but
right?
you're, like, listening to the bleakest
Yeah.
story.
That's what I mean.
But
That
she
takes, like, some
yeah,
skill. That takes skill to, like, make a very dark subject matter feel a little bit lighthearted and, like, more
yeah,
I don't know how they do it, but,
yeah,
yeah.
they they could do it. I'll just
They can
watch
do
them
it, yeah.
holler.
They're great, they're great. Okay, and then, so one of the questions I think I'm gonna go ahead and jump into
Mhm.
spoilers just because I don't wanna, potentially risk spoiling anybody for
Right.
this book, so, we're gonna go ahead and jump into spoilers. One of the first things that I wanted to talk about is just, like, the writing style in this book, like, how did you feel about the writing style? And, you know, with, like, because we are getting 3 different perspectives in
Mhm.
this book, you know, we get, Libby's perspective in the present day, and then we get her brother Ben's perspective in the past, and then her mom Patty's perspective in the past. So how did you feel about like the writing style in this book? And also, like, did you enjoy getting all 3 perspectives?
I think, like, in a whole as a book, I did. I think it was very necessary to read 3 perspectives, but I would have
Yeah.
to say my least favorite perspective was Ben. I did not
Mm,
like Ben's perspective
same.
because he he just man, oh my gosh, that guy. But, like, and also the mom's perspective was very crucial, but I felt so deeply for the mom because she was trying to do her best and just failing a lot as all of us do in life,
Yeah.
and I just yeah, and Libby was also oh, no, is that her name?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. My brain's bleh. Libby was also hard to read because she was a hard character to digest,
Yeah.
because especially when she was running at are we in spoilers now or no?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Spoilers is fine.
I didn't wanna, like, say anything, but especially when, she was running out of money and other, like, girls that were going missing were getting more money, and she's like, "Oh my gosh," and I'm like, "This is not okay, girl, like, what are
Yeah.
you thinking here?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I did like all of them. It told the full story, but Ben would be my least favorite.
Yeah.
I don't know which one would be my favorite. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I really didn't like Ben's point of view. Like, and in
Mhm.
fact, I think Ben's
Yeah.
getting Ben's perspective almost like wanted to make me knock down the book a whole star just
Mhm.
for that. Cause like I was like, dude,
Agree.
I can't stand this kid. Oh my
No.
God. Like he was just so annoying, but also like I don't know why all of his parts were just so, like, sexual, like, over the top sexual. It was just, like, every chapter he'd be
Yes.
like, "Oh my god, like, I'm just getting a hard on over, like, something stupid," and it's like, "What the heck?" Like, I don't need to be in the head of
I
this
don't know
teenage boy.
why. Yeah, I was like, "Why do we need to know this? Why is this in here?" Like,
Yeah,
and
it
then
was, like,
also
overly
yeah,
descriptive in a way that I was like, "I don't need all that."
and then he had all the animal cruelty stuff, and that was
Yes. Oh
whew,
my
that
god.
was I know. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
"Why are we" no. Like,
Yeah.
that was oh my gosh.
Yeah, and Ben's perspective was just especially tough because of a lot of
Mhm.
those things, and, I don't know if I felt like we needed his perspective, you know, I feel like this book could have been more interesting, I think, if Ben had remained a little bit more of a mysterious character, because I feel like
That's
by
true.
getting in his head, it's like, you kind of realize, like, "Oh my god, he's just, like, an obnoxious teenager," or whatever, but, like, I feel like if we never got his perspective, it would have been this more, like, mysterious character of, like, well, did he do it, or did he have like, was
That's
he
true.
capable of doing something like this? Because we wouldn't really know him as
Mhm.
well if we didn't get his perspective, like, I don't know. Um,
It would have been interesting if we got one of the sisters' perspectives. I forget which one that was the one that would always read diaries and stuff like that. She would
yeah,
know everything. But
yeah.
maybe, yeah, I do agree. Like, it would have been more mysterious in a way. I would have been fine without his perspective at all.
Me too.
I agree with that. It gave me the ick 1,000%. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you did bring up the animal cruelty in this, and that was something that I was not expecting. And it's not
Mm-mm.
just like one scene or whatever for anybody who wants spoilers for things. Cause like
Yeah.
I saw some people say, oh, I don't want to read that now because of the animal cruelty stuff, which I totally understand. But it was
Hmm.
not just like one thing. It was like there was a few different scenes. I literally took notes because
Yes.
there was a moment, even with Libby's character, where she like killed the cat, you know, like her aunt's cat. That was like
Yes.
awful. Like, that was awful to read about. I was like, "Oh my god," I was sick to my stomach reading that. But then
Yes.
there was also scenes with Ben,
Hmm.
most of them were from Ben. There's, like, a scene where he, like, backhands a dog that was, like,
Yep.
ugh, awful to read, and then the biggest scene that's like, "Oh my god," is when they're, like,
Yes.
sacrificing a bull. Dude, what the heck? Like, what? Why? What was that?
I
I didn't.
don't that yeah, that part I was like, "Why is this it?" Oh, and that's another thing too. Like, I think everyone's least favorite character, I don't even remember his girlfriend's name, but
Yeah.
she was the worst.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, yeah, that scene was just
I know. It
oh
was so horrific, and I was like, "Okay, is this just like is the only reason this scene is in the book is so that, we can see that like, oh, maybe Ben's not actually a bad guy because he's getting pressured from his friends to like do certain things and like maybe he's getting manipulated into doing things he wouldn't want to do, because like reading from his perspective, he was like, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was like he was trying to convince himself like, oh, this is what I have to do to like prove to my friends. And I'm like, because they were like questioning his masculinity or whatever if he's like not able to
yes.
like hurt this bull. And so it's like maybe we're supposed to be only getting that so that we can see like how he's reacting to it. But it's like I just did not need that scene. I really didn't.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, yeah. We did not need that scene. I don't know, maybe if it was just written to get a visceral, is that the right way to say
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Reaction out of readers, because if so, congratulations,
Yeah.
she
They
did it.
did it.
But I don't know why the purpose of like having it in there for Ben was, because
Yeah.
I think even reading up to that point, you were just like, I do not like this guy at all. And then after
Yeah.
that, you're like, forget him forever. You
Hmm.
don't care what he does, because even at the end, his actions are just horrible.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
I know, and I feel like for me, part of the ickiness that I felt
Mhm,
with this book, it wasn't just the like animal cruelty scenes, even though that was a huge
mhm.
part of it.
Yes.
But it was also like the way that Ben was getting accused of like having sexual relationships with all these like young girls in the town or whatever, and the way
Uh-huh.
like the town, like the parents were coming forward and saying like, oh, Ben did this to like all these young girls, and the way that they eventually revealed that like none of that was really true. I don't know, that like whole thing made me feel very icky because I was like, oh my god, like I hate that so much. Like if there was all these like young girls coming forward saying that they like that he assaulted them or that he did all these
Mhm.
things to them, like molested them, and then none of it ended up being true. Like they because I think right, it was like none of them
Yes, none of them,
actually
yeah. Well,
like they were just targeting him because they saw him as like weird or creepy or like whatever, and they thought they could place blame on him. But I was like,
yes. Yeah, that was I don't know why that was in there. I know that he didn't, I forget what the girl's name was that, Libby had an encounter with later on, and she was the main one that accused him of that, and she's
yeah,
like, "Oh, he didn't really do it," but we kind of had, like, this flirtation thing going on, but she was still very, very young for him, and he was still young too, so that
yeah,
the whole situation was just wrong. So
yeah,
I don't know why that yeah, I mean, she writes some hard junk, and this was
yeah.
all in that book, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, the one girl did kiss him, but I think it was
Yes.
like yeah, but she was almost, like, trying to cover up, like but she said he, like, took it further when he didn't.
Yes,
So it was
that's
just
correct. But then he also left like a note in her locker. I remember like, "I'm thinking of you." And I'm like, "No, dude. Like,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
Just walk away." But he's,
Well, and she
I
was,
don't
like, much younger, right? From what I remember, it said she was, like, at least
Yes.
2 years younger than him, and, like, they were very underage at that point, so
Yes.
ugh. And same with, like I don't know if you remember, there was that one scene where he, like, opened his locker and there was, like, animal reproductive parts or something, like, in his locker because
Yes.
yeah, because like, they were trying to, like, intimidate him or something or, like, the I don't know. It was just so, like, oh my gosh, like, there was a lot of, like, random graphic things that was like, "What
There
the heck?"
were. I think the book I think she was trying to make Ben, maybe the whole world perceive him as one way, and then she was trying to write him as like, he's a young guy, he makes mistakes as teenagers most do, and things
Right.
like that. I don't know. I guess I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. I just Ben was just a big wild card for me.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
just didn't enjoy him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then let me see, what was my next question? Okay, so as far as like things that you enjoyed
Mhm.
about this book, like why it ended up being like around 3 stars instead of like 2 stars or something, what were like some things about this book that you did end up enjoying or that surprised you?
The ending
Yeah,
was
I was
freaking
gonna say we need to talk
bananas.
about the
Like,
ending.
I was like, I remember finishing it and I was like, "What?
Yeah,
What?" Like, it was
yeah,
just like I would have never ever expected that. Like, good for
yeah,
her. She wrote some, because when you read thrillers and stuff, you're like, this is how it happened. And then sometimes
yeah.
you're right, sometimes you're wrong. I was not even
I
in the ball
know.
field for this one.
It is kind of one of those, it's like it's hard to predict. Like I don't know if you could accurately really predict because there's
Mm-mm.
so much to it, like there's so many parts towards the end of this. Um
Yes.
And yeah, so for anybody that DNF'd, because I know I have a lot of friends in the chat who DNF'd and they just want to hear the spoilers for like what happened.
I mean,
Um,
good for them. I mean, if they're not going to read it, I mean, why not? If they just want to know.
right. So the ending of this book is Libby, our main character, she's kind of
Mhm.
reconnecting with this woman named Deandra, who was Ben's girlfriend back in the
That's
day.
her
And
name.
she
Yes.
Yeah, and she didn't know at the time that Deandra had actually gotten pregnant with Ben's child. And so in the present day, she's like connecting with her and she meets this young girl named Crystal, who's like Deandra and Ben's daughter. And Deandra's kind of saying, like, oh my gosh, like Ben didn't do this, but he's willing to stay in prison because he wants to protect, Deandra and the baby, essentially, is like what she's saying. And so then we find out that at the very end, what ended up happening on that night was that Deandra killed his sister Michelle. She like strangled her because Michelle like found out that they were trying to leave. Like they were trying to like leave and run away from town or whatever. And so she was like, no, you can't take my brother, and like whatever. And so then Deandra literally strangles her, kills her, and then they're like, what the heck? And then at the same time, like it's all happening on the same night. The mom, Patty, she had actually hired a hitman to come and kill her. And the hitman was only supposed to come and kill Patty because she wanted them to get the insurance money because like they weren't doing very well or like their business was closing or something like that. So she wanted the hitman to come and kill her so that her kids could get the insurance money. But then when the guy got there, like the young daughter was like already in the hallway or something. So he just started killing all of the kids and he killed her and he killed Patty. And then that was the same time that like Deandra was like strangling Michelle. So like both of the incidences were happening like right at the same time, I think. So like there was multiple things involved. And then that guy, like the hitman, was like, we kind of got his perspective a little bit at the end where he was like, I wasn't expecting the kids to be there and like I have such regret and like whatever.
Yeah, I think even at the end, he's like, that's the only murder I will confess to is that little girl, because all of the other ones, people came to him and were like, kill me for life insurance, which is a whole mixed bag too, as well. But, it does feel good that he feels remorse about it at least.
Yeah. I mean, how crazy is that though? Like, that like, I mean, Ben wasn't necessarily responsible. Ben wasn't responsible for what happened, but he was there, like he witnessed it all and he watched his girlfriend kill his sister and he, he took the fall for all of it.
I remember specifically in the book, I think he's like, DeAndre was strangling his sister and he put his hand on her shoulders and I was like, oh, he's going to stop her. And he just rests them there because he was like, there's nothing I can do. And I'm like,
yeah.
And then I'm like, he's only like, isn't he like 15 or something? 15 or 16?
Yeah,
he was like still too young, but also like, oh my gosh, that's your literal blood that, it's so, oh my. And the fact that he goes to prison and is still saving his crazy freaking girlfriend is beyond me. Who cares about him?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and then part of the ending is how at the very, very end of the book, Ben is getting released from prison because like the truth has come out about what ended up happening and how he wasn't exactly involved. But then right at the very end of the story, we find out that Libby just like lets it go about Crystal, like which is, Crystal was like the daughter. And Crystal had tried to kill her too, at the end of this book, but she decides to like, oh well, she's just a kid. Like I'm not gonna go to the police with her. And that was what really like pissed me off about the ending because I was like, what do you mean? Like I know that it wasn't Crystal's fault and like, yeah, maybe she's just a kid, but like they said she would be at least 24 years old because like he's been in prison for 25 years. So like she would be around 24 years old. So she's not really a kid. And like she tried to kill you too. So like
yeah, exactly. And with her mom, there is no way that she is not going to try to go after Libby or try to connect with her dad and like do some crazy things. I have no doubts about that. So I don't know why she let that one go. Like that is, she's not a kid. She's an adult if you're 24. So I have no clue.
That part of the ending just really upset me because I was like, you can't just like, you're just going to let it go because she's like a kid, but like, she's not a kid.
I agree. Like even the ending, I was like, this is still pretty bleak, even though things are pretty much almost resolved. It's still freaking bleak.
Yeah, it was still so sad. Gosh. I think too, like their dad's character, the guy Runner or whatever. Oh my god, he was pissing me off like this whole book because he would be like, oh, like I know what really happened, but you're gonna have to pay up or whatever, and just like be using his kids and his family for money constantly. Like he was just that typical like frustrating father figure that was just like, oh my gosh, like he bothered me so much.
Yeah, he was horrible. There was, oh my gosh, like I don't know why any of them even put up with him, honestly. Like he's just
he was.
Yes, Runner was a deadbeat, 1,000%.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, did this book have any redeeming characters? Because I'm like, even like Libby, it's like you do feel for her situation, because it's like she was a kid. She was like 7 years old and this happened and it was awful. But it's also like some of her things with like, with the freaking cat, like killing the cat and like the way that she would treat her aunt sometimes. I was like, this is really not okay. And the fact that she did, say that her brother did it and that she saw him do it when she didn't.
Well, that I remember she was in that therapist. She went to a therapy, and I think they kind of pretty much convinced her that Ben did it. And I think they did that too with all the other girls that they said that Ben molested when he did not.
Yeah.
And they kind of put that idea in her mind. So I think Libby had to fight many years of like kind of therapy that was not good for her,
Yeah.
obviously, because she was having strong PTSD. So that was another thing. Like, yeah. So I think
What
they
I mean, it's
pushed
like,
that into her mind that Ben did it. So now she's finally questioning, was that therapy wrong? Was that therapist wrong? And are these other people right?
yeah, it's like
Does that make
almost
sense?
weird because I'm like, why was she like pushed or coached into
Mhm,
thinking that Ben did it? Or why would she, like why would they assume that? And like I know they said like Ben growing up, like he was kind of weird and he was like devil
mhm.
worshiping and he like dyed his hair black or like all these things. But I'm like, okay, but that doesn't mean that he killed his whole family, like
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing too, the whole devil worshiping. Because I know that was a big thing in the '80s. Like, I think if any kid was kind of different, they
yeah,
immediately thought they were a Satan worshiper, which, I
yeah,
mean, I think was a real thing and still, to this day is. But,
yeah,
yeah, they just kinda pinned it on him. I mean, even Deandra, I think at the end of didn't she, like, draw some things and stuff? I was like, "This
yeah.
she's so crazy."
Yeah.
It
I know
was
it
yeah.
was yeah, it was a wild time. I also like it wasn't it so crazy that some of this book actually took place in the month of January. I was like, "Whoa!" Like I wasn't
I
expecting
mean,
that.
hey,
Like
perfect yes, I remember,
yeah,
perfect
like
timing.
that was cool. Like
It's January is one of the bleakest months, so let's
it
just
really is. Yeah,
do
so it
that.
fits.
Who else
It
had to
does
read like
fit.
a really wanted to read like a happy, fluffy book after reading this one? Because
No,
it's me.
definitely.
I immediately
Yeah.
read a Sarah Adams book after this to like brighten up my
That's what you
day.
needed.
Yeah,
That's what you
it
needed.
it is to like kind of level out my emotions.
Yeah. Okay, and then one of the questions was just kind of like talking about the ending again. Like,
Mhm.
if you weren't like were you like really shocked and like satisfied with the ending of this book? And if not, like, did you have any other predictions for like where you would have seen it going? Or
Predictions. I wasn't happy with the ending 100%. Like, I'm glad
yeah.
Deandra was caught and stuff like that. Crystal, I was not happy with her letting her go because, she's just a kid, but she's really not. I really wish justice would have come about.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would have like a happy ending of Libby, like, I think she was finally like coming to terms with who she is. I would love to see her be like, I'm going to go back into some really real therapy and really work on myself and figure out what happened to me. And maybe her and Ben could repair her relationship. As far as like, if I would change anything or like, what was the question? If I would
Yeah,
predict
or if
anything?
you predicted anything different happening or like if you could change something about the ending to make the story like better for you overall,
Just
like it
getting
would there
Crystal caught. That's all I would say.
just throw those handcuffs on Crystal.
For real. What about
Literally.
you?
I know. Well, I don't know, like, I don't think I was necessarily, like, trying to predict anything about, like, where the story was going, I do think, like, the hitman plot twist thing, like, it did catch me off guard, like, I thought it was
Mhm.
shocking, but I also don't know, like yeah, now that people are saying, "Oh, that's kind of a cop-out ending," like, I kinda do
Yeah.
agree that it does feel a little cop-out of an ending, and the fact that there were, like, multiple people involved, it's like, yeah, like, that's not something you could really predict because it's like, it was half the hitman and then half, like, the girlfriend or whatever, and it was just a lot going on.
Who would have
Yeah.
I would have been like, no clue. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing. Like the mom like wanting to just have somebody kill her to collect the life insurance because I know
Yeah.
their farm was going under. I was like, oh my gosh, but like you're
Yeah.
also have kids that are underage. You're just gonna like
Yeah.
money's not gonna solve it for them. And who's to say they get the money right away, with government, and you have 18 and all that stuff. I'm like, you
Yeah.
weren't really thinking about this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a mom, so I have to think about like the mom's perspective and the mom. So I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know, no, no. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I know,
Gosh.
I don't know, and it's like, when you think about it, it's like the mom's perspective had to be included in the story, right?
Mhm.
Because she's involved in the ending, so I almost feel like by knowing that we're getting her point of view throughout the story, it's almost like, she's gonna be involved in something at the end because
That's a good point.
it's like, what other reason would you need the mom's perspective like that,
That's
like, to
true.
tell the story?
That's a good point because I think at the beginning you're like, why is this in here? Ben's you can get because he was, yeah. That's a
Because
good
he was
point. I agree
blamed,
with
but
that.
it's like
Yes.
I don't know. Oh, that's interesting. I thought Lyle would be involved somehow because Lyle was the guy that was like the one who asked her to come and speak at that
Yes.
event. Yeah. He kind of like disappeared like halfway through the book, didn't he? Or
No, he was at the end, I think. He helped. I don't know if he helped or he was there, I think, at the end. I think she
Mhm.
did she reunite with him at the end? I
I
don't
know
know. Yeah,
I
that
don't
would have
remember.
been
His character
interesting.
is so forgettable to me. I was like,
It
is he even
is,
there?
yes.
Like I don't know.
I
That's so
would have
funny.
thought also that, the cousin, I think Rio was his name, DeAndre's cousin would have been involved
Oh,
more because he was just so close to DeAndre, and
yeah.
they both were very, very visceral characters. I thought he would have been involved somehow, but he
Yeah.
wasn't at all. So that, I don't know.
Yeah, I know there was also like at one point they talked about the possibility of like that girl Chrissy that he had like kissed when he was younger. They said there was a possibility that maybe like her dad just got like really fucking pissed about it and like went and killed their whole family. And I was like, that would have been interesting. Like I don't know, that would
That
have
would
been
have, yeah,
crazy.
that, but that would have been totally out of left field because I would
Yeah.
have never, but then again, I guess that would make it interesting because the hitman was also out of left field.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
I guess I like that it wasn't just like some blind rage thing like that, except I guess
Mhm.
with like the girlfriend it kind of was, but like I don't know. Like I think the ending was pretty good overall. Like I just think my only issue with the ending was that yeah, like that Crystal just got away with it and whatever she does to kids. Like that just bothered me too much. Um
I agree
yeah,
with
and
that
then
completely.
one of the one of the final questions that I had for this live show was, will you read more from this author in the future? I know it's been so many years since Gillian Flynn has actually published anything, which I know a lot of people in the book community are like eagerly waiting for her to publish something in the future, but it's been so many years. But if she were to publish a new book, or you know, if you're interested in reading more of her backlist, like is that something you're interested in doing?
I am interested in reading Gone Girl. I don't think Sharp Objects would be for me. You have to
Yeah.
let me know how The Graduate is. That really bleak and all that stuff, or is it
Yeah.
really good? Well, it's one of your
Um
favorites.
yeah, the grown up is
Oh, The Grown Up.
it's
I said The Graduate. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. I think The Grown Up is worth reading. I think it's like it's short, it's a novella, and it's kind of creepy
Okay.
and weird. It definitely has like a more lighthearted tone than like I do
Okay.
think Dark Places and Sharp Objects are pretty dark and bleak.
Hmm.
But I do think The Grown Up is like a pretty interesting one. Yeah.
Okay. I'm definitely interested in reading those. As far as new stuff, I would consider it. It
Yeah.
just depends on like if I knew if it's like the same tone as Sharp Objects in this one, I would be like, I'm good. Like
Yeah, I'd
I love
probably
that people
DNF.
will love it.
Like I'd give it a shot.
It's just, and I would be happy for anyone who read it and loved it.
Yeah.
So that would be, yeah. What about you? I know you'll probably definitely read if she comes out with anything.
I yeah.
Has she said that she's working on anything, or she just like
No,
just
I
completely
think
like
she's doing
just
more like publishing now. Like I think she has her own publishing
that's
house
awesome.
or whatever it's called. Yeah. Like from what I've seen, so she's still working like in the book world, but
Mhm.
I don't think there's been any news on if she's coming out with anything soon.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
she
may
has
be hard. She has all these beloved books, and she maybe I don't know. Maybe she's working on something epic, or maybe she's have I can't even begin to understand what the author thinks because I don't write. But
yeah,
oh, she
yeah.
does have an imprint. She has an imprint.
Yeah, she has an
Oh,
imprint. So she is working
cool.
like in the book world still,
That's
which is
great.
cool.
But I know
Also,
if she were to ever write another book, fans would be
yeah.
like so happy.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point, Kendall. I would also like
Ooh.
to see how she'd approach that. Yeah, there was a rumor that she would be publishing something new a few years ago, but it fizzled out. I mean, that's what I mean. There's
Man.
always been these rumors, but then like, I don't know, it doesn't
When was
happen. So
the Grown Ups her last one, right? That she
yeah,
published, and when was that?
I want to say it was like 2017, 2018. Like it was,
Wow,
yeah,
it's
it's
been
been a
that
while.
long. Okay, man, that would be a total man. Can you imagine if like she didn't like how sometimes you get book news of they'll be coming out if she just dropped it one day,
I know
and
that'd be
that would be
crazy.
insane. I
There's
would
like
be
no
so
build up.
excited
She's
for
just
her.
like boom.
She would immediately get to New York Best Time Seller though,
Oh
no
yeah,
problem at all. That would be that would be cool. Maybe
that
she'll do that.
that would be
Maybe
cool. I could see
that
it.
would.
Um, okay, cool. And then the final question that I had for this live show is, you know, like if you enjoyed this book, do you have any like books, movies, or TV shows that you would recommend as like if somebody liked this, or maybe even if somebody didn't like this, like maybe this is some kind of media that they can enjoy that has like similar vibes.
Oh
Um,
gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. As far as this book, I would say it's full of really unlikable characters.
yeah,
And some thrillers I think about that have that kind of same quality, because that's what I'm just going to go on. Because I
yeah.
don't read that dark into stuff. What is it called? In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead.
Ooh,
It's
yes,
full of really, really unlikable characters. Like they're all horrible. They're all
yeah,
horrible. But I end up loving that book.
yes,
I can't think. My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. That's about a couple that kind of gets involved in killing. And I think
yeah,
maybe that one. I don't know. I don't know. It's
yeah.
horrible.
That's a good one.
What about you? What would you recommend?
I don't know. I was actually thinking about this last night and I was like struggling to come up with anything. But then while we were talking about it, I was thinking maybe like Karen Slaughter. Just because, yeah,
Yes.
like with the dark, bleak kind of
Hmm.
tone, it almost kind of gave me like
Yes.
Pretty Girls or like what's the other one from her? The Good Daughter, like something
Yes.
like that, where it's just like it's a tough read, but it's very
Hmm.
well written. Because I think Karen Slaughter is known for like having these really,
Really
really
good.
heavy
Hmm.
thrillers. But they're also like very well written, and I do
Hmm.
enjoy the writing. But it's just like when you're gonna read her books, it's like whoa, you're signing up for a
Yes.
lot.
Isn't
Um,
there Wendy Walker? Is that her name too?
Wendy
She,
Walker does thrillers, yeah.
yeah, I think she writes some darker ones too, right?
I'm like a little less familiar with hers. I think I've
Okay,
only read like
I
maybe
don't
two
know
of her
either.
books, but
I've only read Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter because that was her tamest one, and then I
yeah,
think I tried to read Pretty Girls, and I was like, too dark for me. I got to
Pretty
go."
Girls is
Um,
brutal.
yeah, so I was like, "No, I'm good." But she's a good writer, that's for sure. I would that's a very good comparison. I would say
Yeah,
if you like Gillian Flynn's book, definitely check out some Karen Slaughter. Pretty
I
Girls in
agree.
particular.
Yeah, I think In Cold Blood, I think that one's a true
Ooh,
crime book, I think,
that would be perfect then.
which that would be perfect, yeah, and then The Night Swim, that's a good one.
I
I know
love that one. That's
yeah,
great podcast elements into it too.
that's a good one.
You know
Yeah,
what
and
would
The
be
Girl with the Dragon
interesting if
Tattoo.
this book, because I know podcasts weren't in, I think, when this book was written, but this book, if it was written now, I think it would be great if it added with the whole true crime thing, it was more of like a podcast that she would go on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
they would try to uncover the case on a podcast. That would be cool if they did it that way.
yeah. I was
I
gonna
would have
say if
liked
this
that.
book published in, like, this year, it would have a podcast element for
For
sure.
sure,
Yeah.
yes, because Lyle would probably be the guy that does it, and then Libby would go on it because he's like, "I'd pay you money," and stuff like that, and she'd be
Yeah.
like, "Fine, I'll guest," and then they'll kind of go on it.
Yeah. I
That
know,
would
like,
be
every
cool.
thriller these days has the podcast
I
element. It's
mean, it's
like
hard not to because true crime podcast is such a predominant I think, like,
yeah,
those are, like, the most popular ones.
they're so relevant. Yeah, they're just everywhere right now.
Yes.
But oh, that's a good one too.
Ooh,
Tana
I've
French, that
never
would be
read one of her books before.
I haven't read a lot of her stuff either, but I do think her stuff is a lot, like, darker in tone. I can see,
Okay.
like, the similarities for sure. For sure. Um, but yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, well, I think that just about wraps up anything that I wanted to talk about. Do you have anything else that you were, like, just burning to talk about in this book?
No, I think we
Did we touch
talked
on everything?
about a lot of it. Just, I'm glad I read one of her books. I definitely am now interested in reading The Grown Up and Gone Girl because I did like Gone Girl the movie, but I was like, is it okay to read the book after? Because I
I
feel
think so.
wrong as a book reviewer to do that.
Yeah. No, I think so. I think Gone Girl's such a good book. Like, I do think you'll find it interesting even if you've been spoiled for the story.
Yeah, I think so too. So I definitely want to check out those. I think I'll skip her other ones because they're just too dark for me. But yeah, I'm
Nice.
excited to have read one of her books to feel like I've actually, I'll pat myself on the back for that. She's a
Yeah.
very predominant thriller author, so I'm happy to have read her. And
Yeah.
yeah, I will say, I'm glad I'm finished with this book.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna
It's
say
just
this
it
was a
was
very
so
dark and heavy one, so
yes.
thank you for thank you for sticking it out with me.
Yeah, I know, because I know you were finished it with way before because we would text each other and I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is intense. And you're like, yeah, I've already done this. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Heather, once
Yes,
again.
thank you
Her
for
channel,
having me.
yes, her channel will be linked down below if you want to go and, subscribe, go and check her out, go and watch the recent videos and vlogs and all of that fun stuff. And thank you so much for joining us for this live show. For the month of February, we will be reading Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, which is a new thriller that I'm so excited about. Have you read it yet?
I did. I've read it
How did
this
you feel
month.
about it?
I did not like it.
Oh no.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
my gosh, it's okay. It's okay.
I have such a love-hate relationship with Alice Feeney.
Yeah,
Like
me too.
I will tell you, the only thing about that book is I don't know if you know the gist of it. He basically goes to an island, and when he goes, there are so many red flags that are thrown out there that
Oh, I
he should
see.
not be there. And I'm like, what are
You're
you
like, what are
doing?
you
It was
doing?
very frustrating to read. I will say that.
Oh
The ending
no.
was a little, but maybe you'll love it. Maybe people that have in the
Yeah,
comments have already read it and loved it. I hope you will have a
we'll
good
see.
discussion. You'll have a good discussion with
We'll
it.
have a good
That'll be
discussion.
guaranteed for next month.
Yeah, I'm excited. Alice Feeney is like an author that I really, really enjoy for the most part.
Yeah.
She has had a few misses though from me, so like we'll see, but I'm
What's your favorite
excited.
book by her?
My favorite's probably Daisy Darker.
Mine too.
Yeah, I love Daisy Darker, but I
That
really
was
love Rock Paper Scissors. She has a few that I've really, really loved.
Did you
So
read, I think it was Good Girl, Bad Girl?
I did. I
I did
didn't really
not
like that
like
one.
that one. I
Yeah,
just
no.
that was so forgettable. But I
Yeah,
think Daisy Darker's so good because the setting, it just
yeah.
made that was
It's like the
amazing. Yeah.
Halloween
Perfect.
vibes, atmosphere.
Yes. It was perfect. Chef's
Yeah,
kiss for that. She does settings really well.
I agree.
Well, I hope you have a good chat next month. I'll definitely be
Yeah,
tuning in to see what you feel about it because I'm interested to
yeah.
know. You'll have to let me know.
We'll have to see. I've seen such mixed reviews for Beautiful Ugly,
I
so I'm like
know.
nervous, but I'm excited. So
Well,
we'll see.
it'll be a 5-star for you. I hope it will be. I really do.
I hope so. That would be amazing. But thank you so much to everybody for joining us for this live show. I hope you have a good rest of your Friday night and a good rest of your weekend. And we will see you next time.